I'm very excited to speak with our next guest. He wrote a piece 5 years ago called Why I Hope to Die at 75. Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel is a medical doctor. He's the chair of the University of Pennsylvania's Department of Medical Health Ethics, and he's one of the chief architects of Obamacare. Dr. Emanuel, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, except I want to clarify for your listeners that that title was not chosen by me, and it's not what the article says.
Who chose? Well, because editors always have
editors choose titles, and they do not consult authors.
No, but the essential gist of it, and I understand that that's like the tweet version, and we will go into the longer form now, is that once you reach the age of 75, at least according to what you wrote when you were 57, sir? Is that correct? Okay. That once you reach the age of 75, you will no longer take any elective treatment. You won't do anything to lengthen your life.
No. That's too. I will not take medical interventions where the justification and purpose of the intervention is extending my life. I will take elective and necessary interventions for other things. For example, if my eyes gave out and I had cataracts and couldn't read, I would get my cataracts replaced so that I could read. So I am not. We have to be very careful about what I said.
Agreed.
Agreed.
And I want to get this right too, sir.
I said is that I would not take medical interventions like a heart bypass operation, cancer chemotherapy for the purpose of extending my life. But I would, if I broke my hip, as another example, not just cataracts. If I broke my hip,
right.
I would get that replaced. The point of that is not to extend my life. The point of that is to allow me mobility and relieve me of pain.
Okay. Would you treat a strep throat or an ear infection?
No.
Okay.
First
See, that
all,
to me is interesting.
You're probably not supposed to use antibiotics anyway. Suffering through it is probably right. The antibiotics issue is the one that gets a lot of people going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So for me, that would be an interesting one. I mean, I would like to think
for most people, it's an interesting one.
So I'm halfway to 75, and the thought of
I'm way closer than you are.
Well,
now.
that's okay. But you've
62.
Yeah, but you've had this amazing life so far, and you've done all sorts of really cool stuff. And
I expect to continue to do really cool stuff and hope I can have an impact and continue to be a contributor to the extent that I'm a contributor.
So doesn't 75 seem a lot closer at 62 than it did at 57?
I don't know. It's 13 years away. Think back where we were at 13. That was 2006, before the iPhone. Seems like a long time, actually.
I mean, I guess we can sort of debate the minutiae of that. I look at this as every, like I said when I'm 64 that came in, there was a time when that seemed really old. And now I look at my dad who's 71 and think he's going to live forever.
Yeah, well,
I know he probably won't.
I can assure you two things. He won't live forever, and his abilities, cognitive, physical, will decline much more rapidly than he thinks. And you think.
Right. So I guess the idea is to get on top of that while we're still making our own decisions. Is that sort of where your brain goes in this?
No, it's partially getting on top of it, but it's also partially saying, look, what is my life for? Is my life to just live as long as possible, to keep holding on as long as possible? Or is there a larger purpose in my life? Is it quality of life? And what does quality mean? So I would say to your listeners, I want them to ask two questions. Is it quantity or quality of life? Mm-hmm. Almost everyone says it's quality of life. And then I say, all right, so what's quality of life mean to you? And I would tell you what quality of life means to me. It means being able to be a contributor, not just a receiver, not just an absorber. It means being able to have meaningful relationships, meaningful work, and not just to engage in fun. One of the things you see is if you look at, people have done reports and all sorts of stuff. If you look at people who live 80, 90 years old, they tend to be, to the extent that they're active and not in a nursing home or not locked into their own home,
right.
They tend actually to be engaged mostly in fun. They go scuba diving. New York Times ran this big thing about the Fountain of Youth in Arizona about 2 months after I published my article. And what were all those older people doing? They were, scuba diving, riding motorcycles, showing how physically fit they were. That, all great, but those are, that's mostly consuming, and it's not producing, it's not contributing to the world. Contributing to the world is very important to the meaning of life, I think, and it's something that I take to be extremely important to the meaning of my personal life. And so again, my goal in the article is to express my philosophy for my personal life and to challenge people to think about their lives and what gives their life meaning, what makes that quality of life important to them. And again, I assume it's not just living a long time.
Now, when we look at this, I'm very interested in the politics of your country, sir. And we could be, I know, eh?
If you explain it to me, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
I'd love to understand it.
There's a few people I'd like to ask a few questions of as well, but I'd like to know your thoughts on the potential of having multiple 75-plus-year-olds running for president.
Well, first of all, as I said in the article, as is obviously empirically true, abilities span are in a bell-shaped curve, and there are always going to be outliers who, despite 75, despite 80, are still curious, active, their mind is sharp, and whatever cognitive decline happens is happening later in their life. So the idea that you might have a 75-year-old running for president doesn't tell you anything, because you have to know, well, are they, is there evidence that they're an outlier, that they still have good judgment, that they're still curious about the world, learning about the world, trying to put pieces together in a creative, novel way. I would just note, I just finished a conversation with a colleague of mine about Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin is one of those people who, was creative past 75.
Sure, John Adams too.
He wrote the second half of his revised his autobiography in his 80s. So there are people like that. They're not that common.
No.
But just saying, we've got a presidential candidate who's 75, 77 doesn't tell you enough. You need to know about performance. I would say on average, and again, on average, that means most people by 75 are not necessarily that, they have slowed down in lots of ways, but that doesn't tell you about any individual, because individuals can have, there are going to be some outliers.
I know. I saw Keith Richards perform a month ago in D.C. at FedEx Field. I'm well aware. Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, thank you so much for your time this morning, sir. Very interesting to speak with you.
Fantastic. Take care.
You too. Have a good one.
And live to 75, a good life.
L'chaim.
And remember, it's a meaningful life that you're after.
That's what we're looking for. Thank you so much, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.